Yo, what's going on, guys? Another episode of the CTW podcast. Really excited about today. With me, as always, Jason. Jason, what's going on, buddy?
What's up, man? Congrats on the victory. Tucker Lutz, UFC Contender Series with the win.
Yeah, we probably should touch base on that. Tucker was our guest last week. Again, peek behind the curtain with it. I actually was out in Las Vegas cornering Tucker. I don't know how much we touched on that. During the interview, I just didn't feel like it was all that important personally, as far as me coaching them or whatever the case may be. But got to go out there. I'm sporting my Dana White Contender Series hat that I was rocking in the corner on ESPN Plus. Tucker got invited back for another fight, had a dominant victory. You want to talk about looking the part of a seasoned fighter. He really brought the noise in Las Vegas. So really cool, but happy to be back with the family and back doing things back here in Maryland.
Yeah, that's awesome. Had to be a little bittersweet. He won the fight. He got invited back, but didn't receive the contract at that time. But do you think that's going to be, could end up working better? He gets another win and then it's just like, hey, look, come beat me.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of two ways to look at it. So one is I feel like he's got to go down the field twice to score one touchdown in a sense. Like they're, obviously sort of feel like that. On the other hand, like normally when you enter into the UFC, generally like you go in at the preliminary level, the pay-per-view and the preliminary card are actually broadcast separately. Same night, same venue, but as far as being in front of people, they're run a little bit separately. So, he could even get like a fight night and enter in on a prelim. Now he's going to get his face out there on a main card 2 times. Right. So I think from a marketability standpoint, I could see it being beneficial in the long run. Just kind of sucks. It does you want to talk about fighting on a UFC event and then winning, getting your hand raised, dominating the entire time, 15 minutes. It was just a shellacking. And this guy was just tough. He just wouldn't go down. And it's like biggest fight of his life, biggest win of his life, silent ride back to the hotel from the venue. And it was just, it felt like a draw at the end is the best way that I can put it. It took me a couple of days to reflect and really, really feel good about the opportunity and about the event. So we appreciate all the support. I know a lot of people were giving Tucker love and checked out the podcast with him. If you haven't seen it, it's back in the archives. It's on our YouTube channel. So definitely check it out. Tucker's a down-to-earth dude, completely blue-collared, and really, I think, presented himself well in the interview as well. And he got to talk about making that transition from wrestler into fighter, which he's obviously done successfully.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, people that didn't know him before, they got to learn about him a little bit on the podcast, and it launched the day of the fight, and then people were tuning in to watch him. So it was cool, contract, whatever, he won, and that's all he could do, right?
Yeah, the way I'm talking with them is, and the way that we're looking at it is, hey, look, we have ourselves a 1-fight contract as opposed to a 3. So He gets back for one more fight. The pay scale is still pretty good, all things considered, for mixed martial arts at the regional. I know this is international, but lower level, not pay-per-view fights. The pay is still pretty good for it. And now he's building a fan base. And it did seem like the response was very positive about giving him a contract from, on like the social media platforms and whatever. So that was really cool. But on to today's episode, we've got a great one in store. Before we get there, we do need to thank all of our supporters for the show. First and foremost, that dreaded individual, Casey Camp, and the Hillbilly Hammers supporting us. Listen, as much as I hate Casey Camp as a person, I can't stress that enough. The guy's an incredible coach. He does great things for his team. The Hillbilly Hammers run out in Western Maryland and Garrett County. Always see that constant growth from those Garrett County boys, and they always make a statement. Well, the reason why is because they put in that off-season wrestling. Like they're doing it year-round. They're working with Coach Camp, and didn't matter. It doesn't matter if they're Northern Garrett or Casey coaches during the year, but in the or another school, like in the off season, they're training together and working hard. And Casey is really doing a good job building champions out there. He's still young, energetic, and that's the type of thing you really like to see. He's going to be a coach in the state of Maryland that everybody is going to know his name for a very long time. He's doing great things out there. And with the Hillbilly Hammers, I'm sure they're always, chomping the bit to get competition in. Jason, I know that you got the scoop on the first competition in the state of Maryland post-COVID. Why don't you tell me about it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some of you guys are familiar with the NHSCA duels. So I just got this in from Coach Todd Martinek, and it says, be ready November 7th, 2020. The National High School Coaches Association has partnered with Ocean City, Maryland, and Stephen Decatur to offer the NHSCA Fall National Duels. All information is on the NHSCA website. This event will sell out, so book now. The best in the country will be there. Let's show up strong in our home state. Go Maryland.
Yeah, and that's,
So,
there's one thing about Todd is that he knows how to run a tournament. That War on the Shore has really taken off. I want to say these last couple of years, but it's been even longer than that. Runs a great tournament. This is the same event that's normally run Memorial Day weekend with the NHSCA in Virginia Beach. Correct?
Yeah, it was kind of a weird situation, I guess. I haven't had a chance to really get the details on it, but, they've been running that King of the Mat, like kind of club duel tournament around this time. And so it sounds like they just sort of combined forces in that venue. So this is going to be the first, as far as I know, the first wrestling tournament in Maryland since, the COVID situation happened. So I know Headhunters is putting in an elementary team and a high school team. I talked to, a couple other clubs, and they're going to be there putting in teams. So it'll be great. I'm not, sure what the turnout's going to be, but I think it should be pretty good. And, we'll get after it.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be a good one. Look, a lot of people miss the opportunity to go down to the beach during the summertime, just given the circumstances with all that's going on. They're going to have a chance to go there. Yeah, they probably won't be able to jump in the water at that point, but still, there's going to be some stuff going on.
Just do it.
Absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more. And last but not least, the episode, as always, is brought to you by you guys, the listeners, Champions at Wrestle, still working on getting that facility that we can have access for clubs and training clinics, whatever the case may be. The goal that we set was $25,000 that we're trying to get to revamp this thing and put together a top-notch facility. Please visit championsinc.org to make your donations. Contact us on social media, Facebook and Instagram. You can always send us a message. We're already getting donations, so greatly appreciated. I got to admit, I dropped the ball. I'm going to try to get like a list out in front of me before next week or the following show, so I can thank people personally. But I really appreciate it. It goes a long way, and giving kids an opportunity is what we're all about. And one way to do it is to have a facility that they can go to, someplace to call home.
Yeah, it's anybody who's been trying to get on the mat during these times know the opportunities are few and far between. You don't have access to the schools. The parks and recs are just, not, they're canceling it, then they're redoing. You can't rely on anything. So I think getting that facility up and running, it's going to be a USA chartered club. So all you need is the USA Wrestling Club or card. And, the club, Gert sent me the club fee stuff, and it's super reasonable. And I think, the goal is to get, have wrestling opportunities out there on the mat. To do that kind of, unfortunately in this time, it costs a little bit more money. So, any donations are appreciated, and let's do it.
Yeah. And just to kind of, clarify there, like, it's not going to be a complete, if you don't pay, you don't play. There's going to be opportunities for people that just don't have the financial means, whether that's why
the donations need to come in. You know what I mean? Because, these things are expensive. So, you either have to charge a large amount of people, which I know is not what CTW is about. We want to provide opportunities for, people who can't afford to get on the mat and don't have as many opportunities as anybody else. So every little bit in that donation doesn't have to be, $5,000. It can be, whatever you can spare to help it out is much appreciated.
Absolutely. And even, we talk about that, even the not too big, too small in today's episode. We're sitting down with Coach Clemsen at University of Maryland. It just finished up his first year. We're talking even more than that, talk about his time in Missouri, how he chose a college to go to, which is another big thing. I think a lot of our listeners are either current wrestlers or parents of wrestlers, that college selection is part of the process. So he's talked about that. And then also giving us a team that we can root for here in the state of Maryland, and what we can do to make the program grow and help the program grow. Really got a lot out of it. Every time I get a chance to speak with Coach Clemsen, I learn a little bit more. Seems like every answer he ever gives is honest. So it's, something I really like to see in the coach of the teams that I pull for. And I do pull for the Maryland Terrapins. It's just that honesty. I don't feel like I never feel like I'm talking to a politician when I'm talking to Coach Clemsen. Yeah,
absolutely. That was my first time speaking with him, and I definitely came away, more excited about the future of Maryland wrestling, and hopefully everybody who listens does as well.
Well, let's not waste any more time with you and I going back and forth. I know this is a little bit of a long intro, but it's all good. We had a lot to cover and, a lot of people to thank. So let's get right to it. Anything else, Jace, before we get started?
Let's do it. Go Maryland.
Yo, what's going on, guys? Another episode here of the CTW podcast. Here with me, as always, is Jason. What's going on, buddy?
Great. Excited about this one.
I can tell it as excited as you always are, trying to hold back that emotion. No, this is a really special one. A lot of our episodes previously are coaches in the area, junior league, high school. We've been fortunate to have a couple of college coaches on there, but none probably not as big of a program. Easy for me to say. Certainly not a Big Ten currently and actively as our guest here today. Coach Alex Clemsen, University of Maryland. What's going on, sir? How are you?
Everything's well. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Oh, well, we appreciate you coming on. It's definitely an honor and really excited to talk about the growth of Terrapin wrestling. How was your first year there now at College Park?
It was interesting. I think that's a good word. It was fun, right? I think a lot of excitement, a lot of newness, and there's always a honeymoon phase, and that's, good. But at the end of the year sucked. I mean, there's really no other way to put it, right? I mean, the disappointment we had for our two qualifiers to not be able to go out and, enjoy a national tournament, especially for Jahi being a fifth-year kid. I mean, he doesn't get a do-over. So that stunk. And I think when I think about some of the other kids that I coached at my prior institution at Missouri that were, probably in the hunt for national championships and multiple All-American titles and things like that, it's really disappointing when you kind of, peel back another layer. And then you start, to think about, I'm a dad, and at some point my kids are going to be heavily involved in sports or music or arts or whatever. And it's just really disappointing for a lot of reasons, the way everything's ended. And then, the last several months have been, it's like Groundhog Day. You wake up and you get on a computer, or you get on your phone, and you try to get as much done as you can, and try to stay connected with your team and your staff and your alums. And I feel like I'm telemarketing 101 every day. So, but that's where we're at. And so that's what we're doing. And so we just try to make the most of it. I've tried to look at a silver lining. I've spent more time with my wife and kids than I ever have, and probably ever will get to again during my professional career. So that's been really cool, to just, I get to play Madden in the middle of the day sometimes with my son, or my daughter gave me a facial the other night, and
I can tell you're looking good.
Yeah. As good as this can be, right?
A really good camera. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think we can choose to dwell, right? It sounds cliche. We can choose to dwell on all the crap, or we can say, hey, it is what it is. And we got a pile of lemons in front of us, and, what kind of lemonade do we want to make with it? And so I just choose to do that every day. A lot of people I hear complain, a lot of people I hear moan, and, the other word, I won't throw it out on your podcast. I don't want to break the PG rating, but I don't know. I choose not to do that. So I'm excited to, get back to it here eventually, and we'll make year 2 better than year 1.
Yeah. So what's the status now with, getting guys in there, and like, what are you allowed to do, not allowed to do as far as like right now?
we're not allowed to do very much, but I'm hopeful. Our head administrator, Damon Evans, he was a college athlete. He's young, he's dynamic, he's still fit. I think he understands the importance of collegiate athletics as much as anybody else could in his position. We're really fortunate for his leadership. I don't say that because he writes my checks. I don't say that because, he's my ultimate boss. Like, I think we're really lucky to have him. He is super quality guy. He is a dynamic leader. He enjoys the sport of wrestling. For a non-wrestling guy, he really respects the sport. And he wants to get us back to work. He wants to get all of athletics back to work. So, we're going to start testing our guys regularly. Some programs in the fall programs are already going through their protocols. We're going to start some new, more in-depth stuff on Monday, and that'll set us up to get some workouts started on the 8th, knock on wood, with some good results. And as we kind of reacclimate our guys and we have more negative tests, which are positive, right?
Right.
We'll get to do more. So
the guys are on campus though now.
We don't have anybody living on campus. Everybody lives off campus, but yes, right. They're back in College Park, and classes are going to resume on the 31st. And hopefully, they're going to have a 2-week ramp up period with that as well, where kids aren't actually in physical classes until the 14th. But God willing, people make good choices. They'll wear their masks. They'll be smart, and we can navigate this new normal as successfully as possible.
Nice. Now let's talk about the transition over to Maryland. It seemed like it was a lengthy, thorough process for the administration before they selected you as the head coach. You didn't have much time to recruit athletes as far as being on your team going into this past season, did you?
No, it was, I think, right, the wrestling world's a small world. They wanted another guy. He turned it down. I'm really thankful for that. I think you look at LSU football, right? Ed Ogeron wasn't their first pick, and he's probably the perfect guy for the job. Hopefully 5, 6, 7 years from now, they're going to look back and say, Maryland got lucky that they didn't hire their first choice, that guy turned it down and they were able to hire Clemsen. That's my goal. But no, it was late in the process, and it didn't leave me very much time. And there were some other things at play with, APR and scholarship issues that I wasn't able to make a lot of roster moves. And that's all right. I inherited some good kids. I mean, we got, 2 national qualifiers. We had 4 different guys ranked in the top 20 during the year. We redshirted a really good, freshman class, plus Danny Bertoni and Orion Anderson, who I think can both win at a high level. I think both those guys showed a lot of growth. I think Danny had the better year, but Orion may have had better growth late in the year with his results. So, and then you couple that with Jack Parr and Michael North. So I'm thankful that, Carrie and Jimmy did a good job of putting some of those kids together, and that those guys chose to stay, and it made a really nice foundation for us. And we weren't able to capture, any late transfers or anything, but our first class was solid. Garrett Kappas is the #1 kid in the state last year, and we got him.
Absolutely.
We were behind. I mean, when I called him the first time, his dad was like, he's not coming to Maryland. And he told me where he was going to go, and I said, we'll see about that. And 3 months later, he committed. So Rich and I like to laugh about that. There was a moment in the recruiting process with them where I already referenced the G-rated. I went probably X-rated and said if he didn't commit, I was going to, what. And I think they appreciated the honesty and the brutalness, and it closed a big gap for us. And that was just a big get, I think, for us in a lot of ways. We needed a heavyweight. I made it a big goal to recruit in state and in region. And I was able to put my money where my mouth is, and then Porter and Solis followed. And so we got, 3 or 4 of the top 4 or 5 guys coming out of the state. And that's key to any program. You have to keep your in-state talent home. And that was great. And then we were able to pick up Cockrell out of state, and I'm really excited about that dude. He is a gunslinger. You watch that guy wrestle some of his Fargo matches. He wins 9-8 and he loses 13-14. So he's fun. And so it's just, I think we put together a really nice, first class. And now our second class with the seniors that are committed. Obviously I can't, name any names, but got a couple of hammers, a couple kids that have both been ranked in the top 50, and a couple sleepers. And one of those guys is a Maryland kid, and I think he's going to be a freak. And we're on another one, And I think we were just talking before you got on, Ryan, Jason and I were, that hopefully by the time this airs, there'll be another big time commitment now round our class out. So
yeah, we're also talking about the recruiting restrictions that are currently in place, right? So
yeah, it's this. I'm doing Zooms, I'm doing FaceTimes. We've done virtual visits. We've done like virtual home visits where, we send the packet and we go through the packet, and, moms and dads in their living room, and Nick and I are, at our houses, or Devin and I are at our houses, and we're, just doing this. And we've gotten 2 big commitments so far during this period. And we're really fortunate for that. So technology, luckily, is pretty good. And we've been able to show kids even the resting room and McLennan Mall, and just walk kids through campus and showcase some things just electronically, even, so people can get a feel for it. So it's easy to pick a school like Maryland, right? I mean, it's one of the best public schools in the country. We wrestle in the Premier League. And we're in the 3rd largest media market in the country as well. And, when you think about exposure and job opportunities and internships and different things, the DMV is really dynamic. So it's not like you're stretching or you're choosing like an unknown quantity. You're picking something elite in all aspects. And I think that's easy for families to sink their teeth into.
Nice. Now, like something for me that would be difficult, because once I get focused, when I'm in my coaching season, is I sort of focus on what the competition is in front of us. I don't know how much Maryland and Missouri cross paths while you're making the transition over. How well did you know the team when you came on board? I'm sure you did your homework before you arrived, but as you were interviewing and everything, did you know the team very well?
Not very well. Maryland and Missouri never competed directly, only indirectly at events. In fact, I think the last couple of years we only saw them at the Nationals. I don't think we wrestled a Maryland guy the last 3 or 4 years. But the league is so good. So all the best guys. I mean, I knew who, Kyle Cochran was a known commodity, and King Sandoval was a known commodity. And but I had to do some research, and we watched some film as our staff. We broke some strengths and weaknesses down, not just individually, but as a team. There's some things we noticed as a program we needed to get better at. And we started attacking those day one with our hand fighting and our bottom work. And we still need to get better in those areas, and we'll continue to do that. And I think as the guys get more exposure and time with us, they'll pick it up. And the good thing for us is our kids are really bright, and they're excited about the change. And so that combination, makes growth easy. So we just, we've got to get back to it. I think that's been the most frustrating thing. Was I felt like we were right at like a tipping point on some grasping of some concepts. And right when we, got shut down, the staff felt really good about where we were progressing. Obviously we weren't having the results, but we were seeing things click on a more consistent basis. We were seeing techniques be, instituted more naturally in their, guys' progressions. So, hopefully these guys have been as diligent as they say they have, and we'll find out when we get back to it if that's true or not. So.
Gotcha. No, and now were you welcomed with open arms from the team? Like, did you feel like they were eager to have you on board and do things your way? Because I would imagine there's an adjustment period on both ends, not just for you, but for them.
Yeah, I mean, it is awkward, right? Like I inherited 30, 4 or 5 kids, right, including the freshmen, and they got me shoved down their throat, and so that is somewhat awkward. But I think the guys were hungry for change. I think they were hungry to have the ability to have an opportunity to have more success. Every time I challenged them, every time I said we got to do something different or better or more, they never shied away from it. I mean, listen, we got our butts kicked a couple of times last year. There's no doubt about it, right? There were some lopsided weekends at Ohio State, and Penn State, and Michigan State. And both times when I said to the team, hey, it's a different world. We've got to do things different and better and more. No complaints, no groaning, no whining. So, I feel like the transition could have been rougher or harder, but the guys did a really good job of buying in and giving themselves and the ability and opportunity to grow. So
we had Carrie McCoy on a couple of episodes, and how was that transition? Because it always is going to be a little awkward, but it seemed to be to me more of a more cordial sort of transition than you might expect. I saw he was like part of the camp that year afterwards. And, so how was that?
It was good. Kerry and I have known each other a long time.
Yeah.
Actually, Lehigh was recruiting me when he was like the volunteer there, I think, out of high school. And then he had a really good kid, Zach Giesen, at Stanford when I was finishing up, and Zach and I wrestled a couple times. Kerry used to come in for Bruce Baumgartner's like world-class heavyweight wrestling camps. So he spent a week in Edinburgh like every summer, and I worked all the camps, and so I would just always be around, and I'd stick around and watch those guys work out. Like one time I got to see Kerry, Rulon, Jamil, and Bruce go parterre one night after the session at like 9:30 at night for like 2 hours. And I shit you not, Bruce was like 45 then. Nobody turned him, and he turned everybody. No joke. So, I actually just, organically, through wrestling, it's a small world, but Kerry and I knew each other a little bit and had a little bit of a foundation and a relationship built. And then when I was at UVA, he was at Maryland. So our paths just crossed a lot, and our wives hit it off at the convention one year. So when I got the job, one of the first text messages or phone calls I got was actually from Kerry, just saying, congrats, if you need anything, I'm here for you. He met with me, I think my second or third day in College Park, gave me a lot of information on the club, the recruiting, the guys. I mean, he's super, he's everything Kerry McCoy is, right? I mean, he's
Sure.
Awesome guy. So I know some people are like surprised by that. I wasn't at all. It wasn't awkward. I mean, he took me to lunch, like my second or third day on the job, he bought me lunch. He's such a good human. So, he even came to a couple of the duels this year. He's still living in town. He's a wrestling junkie, right? He's invested in these kids. Great. No awkwardness on my part. I don't think any on his either. So,
no, he seemed really, eager to see what you can do with the program personally. Yeah. And just like you said, he's everything Kerry McCoy. And even like when we did the bus trip out for champions out after the Purdue match, he was sitting about the second row, into every match that's going on, and just definitely a stand up dude.
Listen, Maryland, the program maybe not, it didn't have results or wins losses, but the kids are good kids, and he was graduating them, and they're staying out of trouble. I mean, Kerry McCoy is a really good human. He could have a lot. We do in wrestling. We have a lot worse people running programs right now. So Maryland's fortunate for that, for sure.
Absolutely. The now, did you have very many Maryland ties at all, or like I know you did the thing at Charlottesville for a little bit, right? But in this region of Virginia, was there much, or was it this is your first time interacting with this wrestling community?
I've got some pretty good ties to the Northern Virginia sector of the world, just from my ties at UVA. We recruited Dylan Wisman out of Winchester as well to Missouri. So I've got some, had some pretty good relationships there, but not so much on the, you cross the river, right? Not so much into Maryland, but some pretty good ties in New York, some pretty good ties in Pennsylvania, my time at Edinburgh, and then just, recruiting extensively in elite kids when I was at both of those institutions prior to coming here. But no, and the Maryland community has been, you talk about welcoming or warm, open, it's been awesome. So guys seem to be excited. Guys seem to want to see Maryland do well. Coaches have been, really accessible, have opened their room for me, have gotten me in touch with kids, have gotten me transcripts. I mean, I don't feel like there's been any. I know when like Brian got the job at Missouri, he didn't feel that way at first, right? He had to really, kind of earn a lot of trust and respect from the kind of the community at his first few years. It took him a little bit to kind of get on board with the Brian Smith show, which is crazy because he's such a good coach.
Sure.
And human. So I'm very fortunate for that. The people around the state of Missouri the state of Maryland have been awesome since I've got here. So
yeah, I think everybody really wants Maryland to do well and is starved for it. And,
yeah, we're the only show in town, right? I mean, we're the only, Division I team in the state. And so that, that helps us, right? And we literally fly the flag. That's part of the symbolism of Maryland. You think of the Maryland, flag. So hopefully that continues, and I can, become more ingrained in the community. I mean, I moved my family out here. We go to public schools. We're part of the state now, right? I'm a Marylander.
Sure. Yeah. Part of the family. And one of the you could kind of tell how excited people were. One of the things that I look back at is the time that we had you in there to run the champions training session. Just kind of full disclosure, everybody, there was the Maryland coaching staff was doing almost like a mini camp, I think the next week. And it was, it's a mini camp. Kids are paying to go there. So since this was a free one, I didn't advertise it. And we still packed the mats with people. I just didn't want to advertise a free session when there was, when there was a paid one. I just felt that would be in bad taste personally. But yeah, it was, it was packed with people there. It filled up, 2,500, 3,000 square feet of mat space with people.
There's probably too many people there.
Yeah.
It was pre-COVID though.
Pre-COVID.
Right. But you knocked it out of the park. It was, everybody had an amazing experience. You could kind of just see, man, people are really excited for you. I do remember you saying, like, I'm telling people, just be patient with us. We're going to get to the top. And I said, you got nothing but Orioles fans around here. If there's one thing we know, it's being patient for success. So
I'm a Cubs fan. It took us.
Yeah.
It took us a long time.
Yeah, I bet. Now, what is your game plan as far as building the program? And let's start with like recruiting. So I know that you talked about the local talent here in Maryland. One, what was your first impression of Maryland wrestling on a talent level? And two, what do you think that you can do to get them to stay in state and wrestle for the Terrapins?
Well, I mean, I think the talent level is as good as anywhere. It may not be as deep, right? I mean, it's still not as big of a state. It's not as, there's not as much participation maybe as there are in Ohio or Pennsylvania. But when you look at elite talent, I mean, Helen, Kyle, Miles, there's plenty of kids that are at other Big Ten institutions right now. I'm not going to name any names, right? There's a guy at Ohio State. There's a guy at Michigan. There are plenty of good kids out there that can compete for, All-American status, Big Ten championships, national titles in the state. And so it's good. There are athletes here. No doubt about it. There are athletes here. And I think in order to get people to stay home, it's the chicken and the egg a little bit, right? We need to have results so people feel comfortable coming here and saying, yes, I can not just get a great degree from one of the best public schools in the country, but I can also win a national championship and a Big Ten title. Everywhere I've been, we've done that, right? When I was at Missouri, we had, Jaden Cox, Levon Mays, Daniel Lewis, Drake Hotteshow, it just boom, 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 boom.
Sure.
When I was at Virginia, we had Chris Henrik, Nick Solzer, Jed Moore, Derek Valeni. Everywhere we've been, we've had success. We'll have it here too. So we need some people to believe, to buy in, to have a little faith in that vision. And it's our job to communicate it and get it out. And, just make sure that we're flying the flag and we're communicating the message, and enough good kids will buy into it and will get on board. Garrett helped that for sure. He's a big guy. He's got a big personality. I think
great guy too. I mean, just talk about a great kid though.
He's
just
awesome
attitude wise, you got a winner there for sure.
Yes, for sure.
This is sort of the standard, coaching recruiting question, but what are you looking for, to build this program as far as athletes and wrestlers go?
So three things we always look at. I mean, the first thing is what kind of student are you? Like the first thing I ask, like Nick or Devin get excited about a kid or a coach calls me. And I think sometimes coaches they almost like, I don't know if they get irritated or if they think I'm being a jerk or something, but I'm like, what kind of grades does he have? I need to see his transcript and his test score, because if he doesn't have a 3.0, 3.2, 3.4, if he doesn't have a 22, 24, 26, Maryland's not going to be a good fit for him. Just because I can get him into school doesn't mean this is the place for him. I need kids that can actually succeed here academically and can actually handle the load so that we can wrestle. I only have 2 team rules. 1 is go to class, and 2 is live right. literally that's it. There's no like, we don't sign a big contract. There's no. Go to class, live right. And when I say go to class, I mean you're in class, you're at your tests, you're at your midterms, you're at office hour, like anything that's required, you do it and you turn it in on time and complete. And if you don't do it, you don't practice. It's that simple. If I find out you skip class, you sit out of practice. If I find out you skip study hall, you sit out of practice. So I need kids that actually want to be student athletes, that want to get a degree. There's no wavering there. The second thing I ask all the time, and I don't always ask the coach because I know you guys are coaches. This isn't to offend you guys, but you're almost like you love these kids so much that you're a little jaded, right? You're biased. And so I always call the AD, or I call the guidance counselor, or I call the principal. My dad is in higher education for 30 plus years, and he's a really straight shooter. And so I usually call an administrator and just say, hey, tell me about this kid. How does he interact with his peer group? How does he interact with authority? What do people in the building say about him? Has he been in trouble? Is there any red flags? Is there any smoke? Because usually when there's one red flag, there's 10 other ones that haven't popped up. When there's smoke, there's usually a fire blazing behind. And they're more likely to be, I don't know, honest, but they're more likely to be 100% truthful. Right? You get the whole truth, maybe not a version of the truth. So that's second. And then we need athletes. We need kids that can go out and score points, that can get to the leg, that want to wrestle a high pace, want to be exciting. The Big Ten it's the best wrestling. My first Big Ten tournament was quite an experience. I mean, people have talked to me about, oh, you guys should go watch the Big Ten sometime. Like, well, I'm coaching at another qualifier. I can't really watch the Big Tens. But I think it's probably the best wrestling I've ever seen. Better than some national championships that I've been to. Just the quality of wrestling, because every kid that's out there is a top 20 kid, top 25 kid, every round. I mean, the matchups are at some point, those, even we had 4 guys ranked at some point, right, in the top 20. So every time that guys are battling, you're seeing 2 of the best kids. And so the willingness to perform, or the willingness to put on is evident. And I need guys that want to go out and do that. And hopefully our first class embodies that. I talked about Cockrell. That kid, you might beat him, but you're going to have to beat him 11-13. You're not going to lay down for it. He's not going to lose 3-2. Dude's going to go out swinging. So we need kids that want to wrestle like that. And the first thing we usually look for is, can you get to the leg, and can you get to the leg consistently?
Yeah, now let's jump back to communicating with the coaches, because it's probably not a secret. You and I spent a bit of time, talking, maybe not as much in the season as before the season, about one of my wrestlers, and that definitely came up. I can speak firsthand. The first thing you ask is grades, and then followed up with SATs or ACTs are the next ones. First off, I wasn't offended whatsoever. Hopefully, I was as truthful as I could have been.
For sure.
But I was in a position where I did have to make like a decision on how am I going to handle this question. And my thought was, and I'm just saying this because of how many coaches listen to this. My thought was, if I lie now, then the next 6 kids that I have are going to they're not going to get the benefit of the doubt. If I can just be honest out the gate this time, then my next 6 kids are going to at least get the benefit of the doubt the next time.
For sure. And I think that helps. I do think, and I don't think anybody means to lie. I think wrestling people in general are when you think about who's involved in our sport, we got some bad eggs, right? Like I talked about that. We got a few guys running programs, and I'm but for the most part, top and bottom, wrestling people are salt of the earth, blue collar people. I think we just love our kids, right? We spend so much time with these kids. I mean, even me, and I'll be honest with Jahi this year, he messed up a couple times really bad. But I just in the short time I got to know him, when I got to know who he really is, that kid, he needs wrestling. He needs positive influence. He needs opportunity. And it's hard for me to even, to say anything bad about him, right? If he was sitting right here, he would be honest. We had a couple tough learning experiences this year. But I would recommend Jahi to anybody that would listen, because I know his fiber. But there's obviously, a couple issues, and it's just human nature. I think with our sport, we spend so much time with these kids, and the nature of our sport too, with how close the contact is. you get to know people on a different level, and you don't even mean to do it. You end up loving the kids so much you can't even say anything bad.
Sure.
So it's not like people mean to be deceitful. Even sometimes it's just like they don't even think about it. They love the kid so much, like, oh, he's great, It's like, well, he's great, but
Right. Yeah. They forget the butt part.
Yeah.
Now, like with your recruiting, obviously you coming from Missouri and spending so much time there in the coaching staff, you've gotten the opportunity to interact with some top wrestling programs out that way. How much do you plan on trying to utilize that resource as well to start building up the Maryland team? Are you going to venture out that way for your recruiting?
Yeah, we have a little bit. We missed on a kid out of Kansas City this year. I think the kid wanted to come. I think the family made the decision. In fact, I know that's the case. The kid still DMs me, but it's like, so it's hard, right? I mean, to get a kid maybe to come all the way out here, but Cockrell did it.
Yep.
He's from Oklahoma. I think he felt the energy. He felt the difference. He wanted to wrestle in the Big Ten. So, I've got some really strong relationships. I'm from Missouri. My family's from the Midwest. My parents are both from Iowa. And so I've got some really strong ties there as well. So we're going to recruit the best kids no matter where they are. Obviously, when there's, one of the best kids from Maryland, if all things are equal, I'm going to go with the Maryland kid. Or if all things are equal with the kid in the region, if we can, we'll sign a kid from the region. But when it behooves us or when it's advantageous to do so, just like, we have a commitment out of the Chicago area. I've known the kids' club coach a long time, going back to when I was in college. And I've pulled several kids out of that club before at other institutions, both of my previous stops. So, I think like anything in today's world, relationship, it drives so much of decision-making. And I've been fortunate to build some strong relationships, and hopefully people will continue to trust me and believe in me and our staff. I think we've got my staff. I mean, the guys are phenomenal. I got two of the best assistant coaches in the country. People may not know it yet, right? Because they haven't had time to, maybe get themselves out there, but I see what they do. And I know what I was doing as an assistant coach, and they're probably better and farther along than where I was at the same point in my career. So I'm really lucky for that. And those guys are helping tremendously with recruiting as well, through their own relationships and their own hard work. So we'll just continue to hopefully, have people trust us and believe in us, and we'll get to do some good things with some great kids.
One thing you just said there, this is just out of ignorance why I'm asking, but you said if all things are equal, you're going to give to the Maryland kid. Is that strictly out of loyalty towards the community, or is there something else that goes into that decision-making process?
I just think it's the best way to build a program, right? You want to put people in the stands. You want to put money in bank accounts. You want to have sustained long-term viability. I think about also, I've seen it work, right? Prior to me coming to Missouri, Brian was getting most of the kids or half the kids out of Missouri. And then after I got there, over that 5-year span, we lost one blue chip kid, and he never All-American, unfortunately. And we had a kid All-American every year at his weight class.
Wow.
And the kid at that weight class was a Missouri kid all but 2 of the years. So 3 of the 5 years, the kids were from Missouri that placed at that weight. So I've seen it firsthand, right? Like I helped shut down the borders. We got all the best kids to stay home: Daniel Lewis, Brock Mahler, Jay Nyerman, Jay Hughes, the Elam boys, right? I had the other Elam committed before I left.
Alan Waters was a Missouri boy, right?
Yeah, but I didn't get to recruit Alan. I only got to coach him for a year. Alan's awesome, but yeah, same, right? Drake Howdeshell. I didn't recruit him, but I got to, spend some time with him.
Gotcha.
Jaden, same. So I've seen the fruits of those labors. And if we can get all the best kids in Maryland to stay home, then we go out and we add our own Levon Mays, or we go out and we add our own, whoever. We're going to be really good, and we'll be able to sustain it. I think a lot longer, because kids grow up, right? Kids from Pennsylvania sometimes grow up wanting to be Lions. People from Iowa sometimes grow up wanting to be Hawks. Well, people from Maryland hopefully will grow up wanting to be Terps. They want to wear the flag. They want to, wear the sick Under Armour swag, and they want to wrestle in Xfinity in front of, hopefully, 10,000 people someday. Or when we're in the PAV and we've got 2,000 people, and that place gets crazy loud. you put 1,500 people in there and it's like
sure,
deafening. So it's a cool environment, and hopefully, I'm here long enough to see that happen. I plan to be. So
awesome. Now, and you talked about getting blue chippers to stay in state. Your Ironmans and Cox and Waters and Maulers and guys like that. Another thing that I noticed looking back, like at some of those Missouri programs that you were like a Grant Leith. Is it Leith or Leach? Is that
Leith?
Leith, and then is it Erneste? John Erneste, I think, was a 33 pounder. Those are a couple of guys. Even Le'Veon Mays to a degree, although I know he's from Illinois. But
just across the river, though.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, but still local to the side. They might not have been that blue chipper necessarily nationwide, but they turned into All-Americans.
Grant Leith he was really he was like number 40 something. He went to Duke out of high school and had a really bad redshirt year and then transferred. It's crazy. Grant actually committed to me when I was at UVA. We sent him the scholarship paperwork and he didn't sign it. And it didn't come in the morning. We're like, what's up? And so we texted him, called, ghosted us. That night he called and said, I'm going to Duke. And we were like, what? So, but then the next year I was at Missouri and he was at Missouri. It was the funniest thing ever. So, but yeah, no, we got a lot of mileage out of John Erneste, right? And I think Jeremiah Kent's probably the next kid in line for the Missouri program to do that. It's a name people in the wrestling community are going to want to watch. He's a phenomenal athlete. Michael Chandler was the same way. He's now Bellator champ. I mean, he wasn't a Missouri State champ.
Right.
Drake
Erneste, was Erneste? He was an All-American, I know, but was he a state champ?
No, he wasn't.
One.
Yeah. So John and another kid on the team, Austin Evler, who never made the lineup, had some injury trouble. Brian Smith's son, Quinn, and Daniel Lewis were all in the same state bracket. And
wow.
1 year, and obviously, Daniel was a 4-timer.
Yeah, he's a 4-timer, I think.
And then another year, John was in that weight again with Quinn and Austin and Cole Baumgartner, who ended up transferring his 5th year and going to Duke to be a starter because couldn't crack the lineup at Missouri. John, he's phenomenal. John was when we played games before practice, John was the first kid picked before Jaden. He can throw a baseball, he can shoot a basketball, you name it, he can do it. He's a phenomenal athlete. And, was this close to being an All-American his junior year. Tariq, John was the guy Tariq knocked off when Tariq made that crazy run and took 3rd.
Right.
He beat John first round in an overtime match. And then John lost in the round of 12. I can't remember who he lost to. He had a tough road back. And then the next year, John beat Tariq.
Was it Pletcher? Did he lose to Pletcher in the?
It might have been. Been. And
it was in Cleveland. I remember the tournament. But
and then John, beat Tariq in a crazy overtime match to place. So, John he's like a brainiac. He's got his MBA. He's a math major. He's an awesome guy. He's going to be really, really successful.
Nice. Yeah. Now, some of these programs that you brought in there, do you see similarities in any of these kids compared to the kids that you see now in Maryland? So say like a Daniel Lewis, or is there a Maryland equivalent to that you could see filling, in your program right now?
Yeah, for sure. Obviously I can't comment right on names, but there's a kid that really reminds me a lot of Levon Mays. There's a kid that's a little younger that reminds me a lot of a Jay Nyerman, John Erneste type of kid. It's funny you say that because, Devin and I, we were at Missouri together, so we kind of referenced that. And then Nick was at Virginia Tech when I was at UVA, and I had Nick's older brothers at Oregon State. I knew Nick when he was 12. He was 11. He'd come out to camp in the summer and stay with his brothers and just torment everybody. He was an ornery little, what. So so we talk about, these kids remind us of, this guy at Tech, or these kids remind us of this kid at UVA. It's funny. You see similarities in kids' styles or abilities or repertoires. We definitely reference that a lot in recruiting.
So on a personal level, you coming out of high school, was it 3-time state champ, right?
Yeah, in the finals as a freshman. I got
homegrown
pinned in
and
like 56 seconds. It doesn't
in the
bother me.
finals, you said?
Yeah,
So
it doesn't bother me.
Four-time finalist. End up going to Edinburgh. Was there a reason why you didn't choose Missouri coming out of high school?
Gosh, I get this question a lot, and it actually caused some issues between Brian and I for a few years. He had an assistant coach that I just couldn't stand at the time. I still don't like him. I'll just no bones about it. I don't like him as a person. So that made it really hard.
We're not naming names, though, are we? Because we could really make this thing a good
let's
episode.
Let's not.
Okay.
I'm sure we can figure it out, though.
Yeah. And then they weren't having the success that they had, you know. Brian was new and he was young, and I felt like the communication piece from them, I think they thought I was coming is what happened. And I felt like, I don't know, a couple other programs just really made me feel like, I don't know, I got wrapped up a little bit probably in like feeling like the love or, you know, wanted. And I think maybe Missouri just thought, you know, I was from 30 miles away, I was going to come. Mm-hmm. And Tim and Lou did a really good job of connecting with me and talking about the success that Josh Koscheck had and the success that David Schoeneman had had. Those guys were the bracketed weights for me. And I was like, God, these big athletic guys are having a ton of success with these two coaches. You know, maybe this is a good fit for me. And I'm from a small town. And when I went out to Edinburgh, you know, it's a small town. It's like 8,000 people. And the school at that time was, you know, only, I think 8,000 people. And it's a little smaller now. So it felt, you know, just kind of felt like home. You know, I went on a recruiting visit to Northwestern. That's where my mom wanted me to go. It was either Northwestern or Stanford. And I went on my recruiting visit to Northwestern. They kept taking me into the city. And I was like, I don't like the city. And
right.
I didn't know, you know, I was a 17-year-old kid. I didn't know what I liked.
Sure.
It was overwhelming. And I just felt really comfortable at Edinburgh for a lot of reasons. And I took a chance and went, and it worked out great, right? I mean,
sure, it did. Absolutely.
I had an awesome career, and not as good as I would have liked, had a little injury trouble. Nothing you can do about that. But my time there, the people I got to meet, the mentorship I had from Lou and Tim, I mean, those guys are two of my best friends or mentors, or I don't know what you'd even call them. They're like family, right? They're like uncles, you know, to me. I love those guys. I probably should tell them I love them. And just as guys, we don't do that stuff, right? So,
right.
You know, but I love them. And
if they tune in, they'll hear it.
Yeah. But, you know, my time with Brian at Missouri, when I, you know, got to work for him, I could have wrestled for him, no problem. And I would have had a lot of success, I think. He's like one of the best coaches in the country, hands down. So I don't know. You make choices as an 18-year-old kid. It's wild, right? The most important decision you make in your life, I think, outside of what spouse you choose, is where you go to school. And the only thing I can say about Edinburgh is, you know, the academic prowess there. You know, it's just, I think my education that I got was phenomenal. The instruction I received, the quality of instructor I had was amazing. But, you know, it's not a Maryland or a Stanford or a, you know, Chapel Hill or something. So, you know, just the degree means a little different. That's one of the things that really draws me to Maryland. People ask, like, why Maryland? I'm like, I loved my time at UVA because of the caliber of kid and family that I got to interact with. I get to do the same thing now at Maryland. Maryland has elevated itself so much in recent history in terms of academic, you know, standing. I know some of the other coaches that have been here a long time, they're almost frustrated by it, you know, like, it's like, it's so hard to get kids into school. I don't know any different. I'm like, yeah, we just have to recruit or rung up, right? They're probably, you know, having to adjust on the fly when they've had success in the past with a different set of rules. So, but that was something that really attracted me to Maryland outside of the conference and everything, was just the quality of person that I get to recruit and train and be around every day, because it's.
I think you got to think too, like, I mean, wrestling, you know, different than football and basketball, where these kids are probably not going to have a career in wrestling, going pro and all that. So the degree, it means more, you know what I mean? You're like, look, you're going to, you know, you got to enter the workforce after this. You're going to want to go to a top-notch school. Whereas, you know, in some of these other ones, they're just like, hey, I'm going to be here for a year or two, and then I'm going to try to go pro.
Yeah, for sure. And there are guys, right, that, I mean, I made a living out of wrestling, but it's not easy, right? I mean, I
Right.
spent 13 or 12 seasons as an assistant. So it's hard, right? It's wrestling to make a, you know, a nice living for your family. There's not a lot of opportunities, whether athlete or a coach. You know, think about, Jordan Burroughs and Kyle Bacon, a few guys they're making a nice living, and they should. And I think more wrestlers should. I'm not one of those guys in the wrestling world that like begrudges the money. I'm like, dude, our guys should make more than they make. The amount of time they sacrifice and the other opportunities and what it does to their bodies, they should be making that and then some. But it's hard to do that in wrestling. And so, I think you got to really think about what institution is going to help you, propel your future. And Maryland does that. So when I'm, selling families, I don't ever feel like I'm selling. I'm like, no, this is a place like I want my kids to go to school at Maryland. Like rewinding the clock, like knowing all the things I know, maybe I would choose a different academic institution. I wouldn't want to choose a different wrestling environment or mentorship opportunity from Tim and Lou. But in terms of like what my degree can do for me outside of the wrestling world, I don't have to sell that to families. I know the Maryland degree is hands down, one of the best, and has instant credit in the world of whatever you want to be in: criminal justice, accounting, education, business, engineering. It doesn't matter. Our school is really well thought of, and our kids work hard for that, and should be proud of their accomplishments in the classroom.
What do you think a kid coming out of high school now? You've had the opportunity to coach East Coast, West Coast. You went far away personally for school to a smaller school. What are some of the things, whether it be distance from home or school size or academic? Like, what are some things that kids should factor into that kind of decision, which you said is the second most important one in their whole lives?
It's different for everyone, but I mean, I would look at where do you want to, what do you want to be, right? And that's going to change. So probably think about like 2 or 3 things. Like, not very many kids are like, I want to be a business major, and they end up going through business the whole time. It's like they end up saying I want business, and they go to engineering, and they end up at kinesiology, or some kids know. But so I'd probably say, like, look at 2 or 3 opportunities or options, and make sure that the place has all those things in case you decide business school is not what I thought it was going to be. So that's one. And then 2 is how successful can the program be? But then what's the relationship with the coaching staff and the administration like? Is that staff going to be together, and are they, getting the support they need from the administration? And then 3rd is how do you fit in, in the lineup? Because you want an opportunity to wrestle. You want an opportunity to be the guy. I think anybody that's being recruited and is a scholarship level kid, it has probably had a ton of success. So you shouldn't be choosing a place where you're gonna not fight for a spot. Everybody fights for a spot, but is there a log jam? Are there 3, 4, 5 deep? Am I gonna actually have an opportunity to compete and represent myself? So I think those are important things. Staying close to home is always good. I went away, right, and it was fine. So it's different for everybody. I think you have to know yourself and what's important to you and what you're capable of, and be true to that. So if you're a homebody, you should probably stay home. If you're independent and responsible and resourceful, you'll be fine going away. So I think some of those things, when you're listing pros and cons for schools, you need to be really listing pros and cons for who you are and what you're about and what your family's about, and figuring out, how that fits, for your set of criteria, not somebody else's.
You mentioned avoiding log jams and stuff. How do you gauge that when you're recruiting? Is it like, I mean, you sent with Kappas, you were like, okay, we needed a heavyweight, but like now you got one, but you can't always rely on that particular guy. Are you some coaches get accused of recruiting behind people and stuff like that. Like, how do you treat like their recruiting as opposed to like where they're going to be? Because people could be like jump up and wait too.
Well, it's even harder now because we're recruiting so much earlier, right? So I'm recruiting and offering, verbal scholarships, right? But we're trying to slot kids in the summer before their junior year. And it's like, it's really hard because you think a kid's going to be at 25 or 33 and they end up at like 57 and you're like, geez, So there's an art to it, I think, a little bit. But I think you have to be resourceful too. We have a salary cap essentially, right? We have 9.9, and it doesn't behoove me to have 3 scholarships, poured into one weight class or even 2 weight classes. We need to be spreading it out. I think organically some of that kind of works itself out. I think, there are other programs that maybe don't have those issues, or they can, attract families for less, or kids come for, less, and good for those programs. But, we're not there, and we probably never will be in terms of with the cost of Maryland and whatnot. It's always going to kind of probably organically work itself out in terms of like how the dollars go, just because, it being such a high caliber institution, and also you get what you pay for. It's not cheap to go here. So we have to be really strategic in our allocation of our resources because of that cap. So I don't see us having that problem. It's a good problem to have if you do, though.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely. Now, talk a little bit about your recruiting class here. One name, Dominic Solis, who was for the state of Maryland, was the Dave Schultz Award winner this past season. What did you see in him that made you say, hey, I want that guy to be a Terp?
What's crazy is we kind of blew it at first. We did a camp for Team Maryland like early on in the summer. Devin and I went out, and we basically went to see Kappas, right? And then just kind of get a feel for other kids that were going to be there. We knew all the best kids in the state, or at least a portion of them were going to be there. And Keith Watson and Kramer Whitelaw were really generous to get us plugged in with that camp. It's up at a private school. I'm blanking on the name.
What neck of the woods?
Out past like Hagerstown.
St. James.
Oh,
yeah, St. James. Thank you.
St. James. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful campus. So, we drove out there and we got to see a bunch of kids, and Dom was there. And I was like, that kid's big and strong, athletic, and I think he's pretty good, right? And Danny Bertoni and Kyle Cochran were out there working the camp too. I'm like, hey, grab that kid if you get a chance. See what he's, they thought he was great. And then he didn't place at Fargo. And I was like, maybe I got, a little, and we kind of backed off of them, and idiot me. So, we just, I don't know. I just first want to admit it. I kind of got cold on him, and then I'm watching his results, and he went right from football to Ironman, and he places, and then he goes to Beast and places, and I'm like, oh my god! Like here I am saying we're going to recruit all the best kids in the state. We have the kid in on the visit, and I don't offer him. I'm a schmuck. I am like the biggest schmuck ever. So basically, I called his mom, and I said that like, I'm an idiot. I'm obviously no good at my job. Like, please forgive me. We want your son. I blew it. We got to get him. Dom, I think, was offended, and rightfully so. We worked really hard at bridging the gap. I think Garrett helped us. I think our relationship with Welsh and Bakewell helped. And I think my staff, did a really good job of kind of communicating with Dom and making him comfortable. And I think we were just honest like this, like just brutally honest. Like, dude, we blew it. There's no 2 ways around it. I don't want to blow it a second time. Let's make this right. Let's get you to be a Terp. But I think the thing that I saw that impressed me the most was that transition from football to wrestling, that he made it so fast and competed at such a high level. Like, he was exhausted in those matches, and he just kept fighting and kept coming, and he didn't care. His face was like purple, right? Because he's not in good shape, but he kept swinging. He didn't stop swinging. So he's obviously a really tough kid. And then I was talking to some people around the state, and they were like, just talked about John Morrison was one of the guys. And he was like, John, the first thing he said to me was, that kid's a leader. That kid's a really high character. Like, I see him at tournaments, and he's, his teammates kind of rally around him, and he's like, other kids are goofing off, and he's telling them to knock it off. And in the stands, he's super focused. And I never see him like doing anything like silly. And John's a Okie State guy. Like, he's a wrestle head, and the first thing he's telling me about are those characteristics. And I'm like, we have to have this kid. So fortunately, Mom didn't, hate us. And I think Dom forgave us and was appreciative of our honesty. And jumped on board and we were able to get him because he's going to be great for us, I think.
Absolutely. No, and now another direction with it would be Maximus Bentley's another one that's on there. Easton kid, public school, very small school, other side of the bridge. What jumps out to you about him?
So again, I've referenced my staff quite a bit. Those guys were the guys that were really pushing Max, especially Devin. I think he saw like a really like blue collar mentality in him. I think Max is a little quieter and Devin's a little quieter. I think they kind of connected or clicked, and Devin's like, he just kept putting film in front of me, like, watch him wrestle here. Watch his toughness. Watch the way he ends this match. Watch the way he comes back. And he just kept feeding me snips and clips and was like, hey, I've made some good headway with this kid. I like this kid a lot. Get on the phone with him. So called him a couple times, and he's just a really nice kid. And then the more I watched, I'm like, he's got a lot of what we're looking for in terms of toughness and resolve and grit. And he, again, all things equal, he's an in-state kid. And when we're evaluating, it's like, we should get the in-state kid. Let's get him. He's a good little bugger. And he's the kind of kid that 2 years from now, 3 years from now, when he's in the lineup and he's winning matches at the Nationals, and you're like, gosh, it's like, yeah, that's like the John Earnesty, super high, character kid that, hey, maybe doesn't jump off the paper in terms of like, national ranking and stuff. But when you really watch him, you're like, he can win. No doubt he can win. We got to groom him a little bit and give him some more tools that are, that can, kind of filter into his repertoire naturally. And hopefully we'll see some good growth from him. So, but I think again, his like quality of individual, like the human that he is, and his resolve are two of the things that jumped out at us. Nice.
No, very cool. And
so you talked about John Morrison earlier. Let's touch on the DMV RTC, like your role and just, how important that is to, building Maryland wrestling and Terrapin wrestling.
Well, RTCs are you look at any top program, they all have them, right? Missouri, Iowa, Penn State, Ohio State, it doesn't matter who it is, they've got them. And everybody kind of operates in like a different level with them, but, they're viable in all the best programs. And so we have to have a viable one. And John is somebody that I've known a long time and actually have tried to hire a couple of times before for different things, and I've reached out to him about other opportunities, and just couldn't seem to get together on anything. And then when I got the job here, again, reached out to him. We kind of bounced things back and forth last year. And then this spring he came to me and said, hey, we've got Helen training and we need to get her involved with an RTC. Why don't you let me be he pitched me. He's like, why don't you let me be your RTC coach? I was like, John, we're just not at a position yet to like jump with this. Like we got when I think about, different levels or layers of things that we need, I just like, I'm just not ready for it. We're probably like a year away. And he was like, hey, well, let me do this and I'll bring this to the table and he kind of had a plan. And I said, all right, Chief, you're in charge. And so John's done a really good job. He brought Helen into the fold, and she's the only gold medalist in women's Olympic history for America, right? And you talk about, again, quality and human being and championship mindset and culture and all the things that she can bring to the table. Yeah, maybe, she's not going to be somebody we put with our guys and she, beats them up, right? But she can talk about, what it's like to fight through adversity. She can talk about what it's like to get ready for a gold medal match. She can talk about what it's like to sacrifice to get into position to win a gold medal. She brings so much to the table in terms of like coaching and just, different qualities that I think are pretty much unmatched. I mean, how many people can say they have an Olympic gold medalist involved with their program? Like, right. I think it's like 4 or 5, right? That's it. So that was huge for us. And she's local again, right? She's from Rockville. She's right down the road from me. So that's really cool too. And John's got a really, big vision for, growing out from Helen and adding, future pieces. And those two are kind of in the peripherals working on it right now, actually. And, but it takes money, right? It takes time, it takes resource, and we got to raise some more of it. Oh, sorry about that. I don't know if you guys picked up my dog. I'm about to eat somebody. But we got to raise some more money, and that's a never ending cycle. And John's helping with that, and Helen is too. And hopefully people will, be generous and want to get involved and support, and we'll continue to grow it. Right. Again, the chicken and the egg. So.
Right.
Yeah, but John's somebody I think is going to really help our program. He knows his wrestling, and he's a great guy. So I don't think you can go wrong when you can add somebody like that.
Yeah,
no,
we're
and I would
gonna
think
have John and Helen on coming up next, I think. So that'll
Awesome.
be we'll dive more into that for sure.
yeah, that's gonna be really cool. I got to think that's gonna be one of the things that you guys need at some point to compete at the Big Ten level. Like you said, everybody has them, these big time. I just thought, man, this could take Maryland to the next level or help it with that type of thing. How's the response been from your wrestlers having the RTC?
Yeah, it's been really good. We haven't been able to fully utilize it yet. John, we can't have any outsiders on our campus yet. So nobody other than UMD employees and athletes. But, John's got his facility also in Gaithersburg. And I know some of our guys have gone over on their own and been around him and Helen. And the response, especially about Helen, I think her ability to communicate and be honest and vulnerable and some of the things that she can bring to the table, guys click, and I think people will gravitate towards her. And I could see her eventually being like a Becky Hammond or, that kind of breaks a barrier down and jumps into Division I coaching because she knows the sport. So we're really fortunate to have both those guys, both those people involved with our sport,
Sure.
or with our program.
No.
And they're going to help us tremendously. So.
And you talked about like maybe Helen not banging heads with everybody, but where she might not be a body, she certainly can be a mind. You know what I mean? And
minds
are what's even absolutely that's got to be more difficult to come by.
A set of hands. It's so funny. I feel like I had to qualify that because the sport of wrestling, right, is so crazy about this. How many national championships did your head coach win, or how many world medals do your assistant coach have, and how many national team members do you have on your RTC? It's like, I don't know. Brian Smith was never an All-American. He's a pretty damn good coach. And Tim Flynn was like 7th once, and he's a pretty damn good coach. And so I just think that stuff gets so overrated. But in our world, man, it is like, look at the Big Ten. I think the least credentialed coach in the Big Ten in terms of, besides Mark Manning, who didn't wrestle Division I, but, I think his coaching speaks for itself. So
Sure.
Again, it's a guy, right, that's like, they proved my point with Tim Flynn and Brian Smith. But for whatever reason, our sport puts a lot of emphasis on it. And you look at other sports, right? Football, basketball. Mike Krzyzewski was the backup point guard at Army. Bill Belichick never played a down of football in his life. So
right.
How are these guys, in other sports, these great minds, right? Well, Helen is a tremendous wrestler. She just, she happens to be female. It's great. So if she can't, beat up guys, right? Because that's such a meathead mentality in wrestling. I know she knows a lot of wrestling. I know she knows, positioning. I know she knows single legs. I know she knows hand fighting. I know she knows ankle lace, gut wrench. Like, I bet she can out coach just about anybody. So yeah, just because she can't beat up my 41 pounder doesn't mean she can't, coach better than 90% of the people out there. So I think, not surprised that you understand that and you guys appreciate that, but for whatever reason,
Sure.
I think our sport just doesn't get that enough. And
well, we also got we have the luxury. We got to see her for 2 years at Magruder beat up on guys literally before she moved out to Colorado. So we saw firsthand, what she's capable of. I think it's going to be awesome. I'm really, really excited for it. What do you think needs to change within the Maryland program? Yeah, obviously the wheels are already in motion, but let's step away from Maryland as an administration or as a wrestling program. What can we, high school coaches or fans or supporters do? What can we do to start helping build Maryland wrestling?
Maryland wrestling in terms of the university or in terms of like the region or the state?
Let's go with university.
Well, I mean, probably 3 things jump out to me. One is like attendance, come to matches. People don't want to go wrestle in front of 500 people. We need to pack the pavilion. We need to have 1,500, 2,000 people in there every match, whether we're wrestling a, non-conference tune-up opponent or we're wrestling Iowa. We need to have consistent, strong fan attendance. So I think that's really important. And then I would say, attending our RTC sessions and our camps, because that benefits us, monetarily and fiscally, where we can give back and grow our assistant coach pool, or we can grow our RTC athlete pool. Those resources really help us. So from just a fiscal reality. And then, giving,
of course,
we're always fundraising, and I was talking to some people the other day about giving, and just a really good friend of mine, and he was like, man, I'm not in a position to give, and at the level at which, you know, I think maybe in the recent past, but pre-COVID, he'd been able to. And I was like, of course, man, everybody's going through, like, write me $100 check. And he's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, write me $100 check. Like, it's $100 more than I had. If I get 1,000 people to write me $100 check, it's a lot of money.
Sure.
So really anything helps our RTC, and which hopefully in turn helps the state. We're going to host we were supposed to this past year host the Maryland like pre-Fargo camp.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully our relationship with Maryland USA Wrestling continues to grow, and we'll continue to be able to offer more opportunities. But the more that we can generate with manpower, the easier it is to put on those opportunities. And then the last is, help us keep the best kids home. Help us keep the next generation of Kyle and Helen and Miles home to be Terps. And I'm not saying you got to push kids if it's not the right fit for them, or, you know, they shouldn't go look at other opportunities. But, you know, talk about how great of an opportunity it is to get a degree from Maryland. Talk about how great of an opportunity it is to wrestle in the Big Ten. How, you know, sick it is that your buddies get to go watch you at the Xfinity Center, you know, throw somebody on their head, and that mom and dad don't have to travel, you know, 10 hours to see a dual meet. They can drive an hour down the road and get to, you know, at least half your matches. You know, I think those are the conversations that hopefully coaches are having, and people want to see their kids stay home so they can support them too, and you know, be at their matches and get to watch them. So I think those, you know, 3 areas, and the first one's kind of broken up into a couple of different bullet points, but
yeah,
those things can help us a lot.
Yeah. Now the RTC, just, you know, I'm a propose a hypothetical, I guess, but Maryland has some strong academic standards that I know that there's very little flexibility. Kids can pass clearinghouse. That doesn't mean that they're going to be going to Maryland. Could you see a scenario where a kid maybe enrolls as a part-time student in college, but still has the RTC to attend while they get, you know, a couple of their prerequisites knocked out of the way, and then transferring in their clock officially starts at College Park?
I could see that happening. I could also see like a similar situation of, you know, what Cornell has with the Finger Lakes, where kids go, you know, to a JUCO, you know, for a year or maybe even 2, and, you know, get their associates and they train with the RTC. I could definitely see that being a viable option for sure. We're probably a little bit away from that being a reality, just in terms of like manpower and facility usage. But yeah, I don't know why it couldn't work. I mean, if it works at other places, I mean, Cornell's a great institution, right? Academic institution. So why can't we model, you know, or recreate, you know, something that they've done with a lot of success?
You're talking about like that gray shirt model, Mackin. Is that what you're talking about?
Similar to, which I think just recently got popular, but I was thinking, you know, like it's so difficult. And of course, high academic standard is something you're not used to. I would think UVA you probably met similar challenges when working in Charlottesville. But, you know, I just proposed a hypothetical off the top of my head, and you know how my brain works. I get distracted.
For sure. I think that's really good. I think I referenced this earlier. It's one thing to get in. It's another thing to be able to be successful. And so whoever we would kind of put in that position, I would just want to make sure that, you know, they actually have the ability to do the work. I think there are kids that are from schools maybe that, you know, didn't have the resources or whatever to put them in position, but they're very intelligent and they need, you know, a year or maybe 2 to catch up. That would make perfect sense. Or maybe a kid is a horrible test taker and just couldn't get, you know, he's got a strong GPA, but his test score is poor. And so, you know, that could be like that kid can do the work. He just, you know, for whatever reason, we couldn't get him in because his test score is too low. Well, hey, let's do the gray shirt. Let's do the year or 2. And, you know, you prove that you can do college level courses and we'll transfer you in. I think those kind of things are great and could definitely work. We probably will never get to the point where we're, you know, able to, you know, stretch too far because, you know, I want kids to be able to be successful once they're at Maryland in terms of like what the workload is.
What's your philosophy on red shirts? And has there been more interest in a redshirting this year because of the COVID situation?
I'll answer the last part first. We haven't even talked about it with our kids. There's so much unknown. We'll just kind of, you know, see. Who knows? We may pull off a season just fine here in January. If there's a vaccine or better testing, if we get rapid testing that can be done, I don't know why we couldn't, practice and compete really easily. So that's hard to tell. Redshirting, there's two schools of thought there. One is like everyone should redshirt and get stronger and bigger and acclimated to college. The other school of thought is you have a guy that's really good and he's wrestling at a really high level and he's healthy, you should wrestle him and give him an opportunity to be an All-American or a national champ right away. That's what Cox did. That's what my teammate Gregor Gillespie did. And then if you get injured later, you have the redshirt year to fall back on. So now they're giving out, additional years a lot easier than they were when, I was competing, or even 5-7 years ago. So I'm not sure holding the red shirt is as important as it used to be. So I don't know. We've talked about both scenarios, redshirting everybody. And we've talked about wrestling everybody. So probably do it on an individual basis, case by case. I know last year we redshirted everybody. We even redshirted Bertoni and Orion. So, but that was, Jack Parr was coming off a shoulder injury. Michael North's father was really sick back in Ohio. He passed away this offseason. There were some other things that played too. Yeah, he's been through a lot this year. But we kind of made a decision to redshirt. I don't know. We'll see as time goes with it. I think more likely than not, I'm probably going to lean towards redshirting, just because not so much the unknown with Corona and the season, but just how damn tough the conference is. Like these kids, like physically, the jump is tremendous. So really want to make sure kids are physically ready to compete at that level.
And do you think that's obviously going to be a combination of both? Do you think a lot of that is done in the wrestling room or the weight room as far as the red shirt? Is it turning them into men so they can handle that, or getting them in the wrestling room and getting beat up?
That's a great question. It's probably more wrestling, because, weight room strength is important in things, but I think it's the wrestling strength, and it's the ability to protect themselves, to defend themselves. And obviously the weight room strength translates over and helps you do that. But, just the level at which you have to fight, it's really high. So it's probably more the wrestling side of it. I think those things go hand in hand, and we work really hard in both areas, obviously. But it's probably more the wrestling.
Okay. Gotcha. And then before, I asked the question, what Maryland wrestling can do to improve. And then you asked me, I figure both were decent questions. How about like on the wrestling aspect? What can we do as a community to improve the level of wrestling in this area?
Oh, it's a loaded question. People are going to get so mad at me that I'm picking apart their wrestling.
Oh, please do. Please do.
I think getting back to some like really good fundamentals and basics. And I don't think that's a problem in just this area, but I think just all over, right? Like I have kids from New York, Oklahoma, Ohio. Like I'm teaching a stand-up. Like some of these guys just don't know a proper stand-up. They want to, roll all over the place. Or again, the rolling defense, like how to actually sprawl and stuff head and square hips and slide off a lock instead of jumping over top and grabbing ankles and rolling around. All those things are great. You have to have them in your bag and in your repertoire. And I've gotten a lot of mileage out of kids that's their go-to, right? With Jay Nyerman or Brock Mahler. But again, if you watch Brock Mahler's All-American round match, how many times he stuffed head, square hips on Max Thompson, so he didn't give Max an opportunity to come out the back door and split, which Max is so good at, and isolate a leg. That's what won Brock that match, was he kept stuffing and sliding off the lock. So you got to be able to do both. And I think getting some of that going, just some fundamentals with hand fighting and basic positioning on defense, and then clean finishes on leg attacks where they can consistently go to a system or a set direction could help. And that's not just the state of Maryland. That's all over the country. I think we've gotten away from fundamentals and let kids almost get too creative, which there's a fine line there. You want the sport to be fun and unique, and it is individual, but I'm a big believer that you've got to be able to do A, B, and C if you want to have X, Y, and Z.
Detouring for a second, you're talking about the Thompson-Mahler matchup. How much do you scout? It seems like you had to have done some sort of video work for that specific match. It can't be the only one.
No, well,
but
we dueled them earlier in the year too, and so we had scouted for that match prior to, and we had some wars with Levon and Thompson as well. So they were in the conference, at one point before they jumped to the Big 12. So I'd seen, God, we had probably wrestled Thompson over those 3 years, 2 years with Levon and the year with Brock, probably 12 times, 11 times.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
But no, we're doing a lot of scouting. I'm watching a lot of film. You got to be prepared. You have to know, and it's not so much to inundate our guys with, it's more for us, how do we want to, strategy for choice in the second and third periods? And are there some areas we want to stay away from? Is there, some things that we think we can exploit? And we'll tailor some practices to that, we'll tailor some individual workouts to those things. But we never try to get like super specific where it's like, hey, we got to get ready for this one guy, or we got to get ready for this one team. I mean, wrestling's a martial art, right? There's no like one magnificent move or one superior system. It's a lot about execution. But we're preparing for certain scenarios to make sure that, if a team's really good on top, we're spending a little more time on bottom, or the team's really good at hand fighting, we're spending some time with hand fighting, and those things hold true throughout the year. So you have to be ready for them. But as we get into some higher level matchups and towards the end of the year, we're really focused on, I think, knowing, how to give our guys the best opportunity to win with like choice and strategy and things. So I'll be the first to admit, I've gotten it wrong a couple times and cost matches, and you don't want to do that. That's the worst feeling as a coach.
Oh, I've been there.
You put a kid down and you shouldn't have, and it's like, you can't forgive yourself. So you don't want to have those moments. And so you try to over prepare.
Nice. Now, how do you balance the family life and the professional life together? Because it seems like between like you're saying, scouting, running practices, traveling, recruiting, everything, at such a high level at a Big Ten wrestling school. I mean, I don't know that I could pull it off. Me personally, has that been a challenge?
Yeah, it's not easy. Your family has to be really understanding. I think they have to know that it's just part of the deal, right? I think there are a lot of people that maybe have better hours or make better money, but they hate their job and then they're miserable when they come home. At least when I come home, right, and the time that my family does get with me, I'm locked in and engaged and usually pretty happy. Even if I got my ass kicked, it's like, well, I signed up for this. This is what I want to do, So I don't really have anybody to blame but me. I shouldn't take it out on my wife and kids.
Sure.
And then I think we're trying to be really smart and strategic about our office hours and our practice times. We go 7 to 9, 2 to 4. So I'm in the morning before traffic starts, and I'm out of there before traffic hits. And I'm strategic about that, not just for my family, but our staff's families.
495 traffic can be a bitch.
I luckily don't have to take 495. I take the ICC out to or take New Hampshire up, so even farther than the ICC, and I'll take that in backside only, up to 108. So, but we're strategic about that. If we don't have morning practice, I tell my guys, hey, come in after traffic dies out. Everybody's on a laptop, right? Like, get on and do your email. Watch that film that kid sent. Call that coach back. Why can't you do that at your house? Why do you have to be in an office to do that? You don't, stupid. So try to look at the world maybe a little different, give our guys a little more flexibility. I think I hate saying my staff. These guys aren't mine, it's our program, it's our staff. But I try to give the staff a little more flexibility to do things, and they've done a phenomenal job with it. If I give them, a morning off, their I's are dotted, their T's are crossed. I don't have to worry about it. It's not like these guys are sloughing off. So there are times where my wife will just take my phone away and put it in the drawer, and it's like, oh, she's had enough, so I got to unplug. Might be a afternoon, that might be an evening. It's been a weekend before, but you got to do it. If you don't, your life's going to be miserable. So my wife and kids always come first. If I have to pick between calling a donor back or putting my son to bed, I'm putting my son to bed. I'll call the donor in the morning. So,
understood. Yeah. I don't think anybody can argue with that one. I would say the likelihood my wife will probably end up divorcing me at some point anyway. So, but
Don't
for most
joke.
people,
Don't joke.
but no, just, curious on as far as the balance. I just know
It's
what
hard.
the commitment is for a
Yeah.
high school level coach. I can't imagine for a Big Ten
It's hard.
college level.
It's hard. You guys too, though. You have other things like, high school coaches are teachers as well, or they have a career outside of the school building. You guys get pulled in 1,000 different directions. At least like everything I do is, even when it's camp or RTC, it ultimately it's all Maryland wrestling. So at least I'm in like a silo where you guys, you're getting pulled. I'm fortunate for that there's a lot of like crossover with things. So that makes it somewhat easier. And then the staff, I have 2 guys that I can empower and give autonomy to, and I don't have to worry. Like Devin handles all my back office stuff. He does a lot of compliance stuff. He does a lot of travel logistics. I don't have to worry about anything. Like the vans are there, the tickets are bought, the hotels are nothing, right? Nick handles a lot of my recruiting, and he's kind of sifting through kids, and he is watching a lot of film, and he
does a great job, by the way. Also,
he does. He does. And,
from firsthand experience.
And he's kind of filtering things, and so he's like, "Hey, watch these." So I don't have to watch 100 kids. I'm watching 10. And so I'm really lucky with that. I was fortunate that Coach Garland and Coach Smith empowered me and gave me a lot of responsibility and rope and leeway. And I think I earned that as I, worked for those guys. I probably got more each year. But it also made me more invested in the program, and it made me happier to work for them. Because when you have ownership of things, you want to do a good job. And so I've tried to do that with our 2 assistant coaches here. And so far they seem, happy, and they're super productive, and they're loyal and trustworthy. And I don't worry about too much, because I've got really good guys, and we all 3 can lean on each other, and eventually we'll get a volunteer coach that can fill that role. And when we're the 4 horsemen will really be clicking. So that's probably why I'm able to do it, is because our staff is so good that I can turn my phone off, and I know that anything that needs to be done while it's off, those 2 got it. And vice versa, right? If Devin needs to check out while his wife's about to have her second baby here in a week, he knows that we'll get whatever compliance paperwork done or whatever logistics done. It's just, we'll do it. So we're lucky. There's a lot of trust and respect in that office. It makes it a lot easier.
No, it sounds great. What are you guys doing? And I'm sure we both mean this with all due respect to Coach McCoy. What are you guys doing to change the culture and the success of the Maryland wrestling program?
That's tough, right? I mean, I don't know what we're doing different, because I wasn't in the program before I wasn't a wrestler under him. I didn't coach with him. So I don't know what we're doing different. I just know, we're holding the kids really accountable. I said, if you don't go to class, you sit out of practice. And ask Cochran. He was our only captain we named last year. He sat out once, and it only took once. So I think the accountability piece is really big for me. That kind of stems a lot of things. We really talk about the locker room being strong, and accountability kind of having 3 layers: self, peer, and superior. If those first 2 aren't really strong, the third one doesn't really mean much. I can only bark so much. I can only yell so much. Eventually it falls on deaf ears. They're like, Clemsen's just an a-hole. He's just always yelling at us. I need the locker room to be really strong. I need our kids to kind of police themselves. You think about those really good Alabama football teams. You go back and you watch some of the footage leading up to those BCS games, and that defensive line talking about how they control the locker room and they take care of what they need to take care of. I need the guys to do that for us. I need our leadership group to check the other kids if they waver. I need, the older guys to show the younger guys the march of the penguins, right? Like, this is how we do it. This is where we go. This is how we work out. This is, whatever it is. So, and the younger guys to feel empowered that if somebody in the leadership or a captain's not doing what they should, they can speak up and say, hey, who are you, hypocrite? Fall in line. Let's go. So I need the locker room to be really strong. And we're still working on that piece. It's not as strong as I'd like it to be. We've had a couple of leaders, strong leadership personalities emerge. There are a couple of guys that I think are capable of doing more in that realm. Danny Bertoni's one that I think is a kid that can do more in the leadership role. I'd like to see him kind of take ownership of and embody a little more. I know he's capable of it. He's super bright. He's really responsible. He's a phenomenal athlete. I think we're going to see some really high level success from here in the future.
Awesome.
So he's somebody that I'd like to see kind of have a little more of a voice. He's just, he's kind of a quieter kid, but he's coming out of his shell and he's buying into it, and that will help us. So more kids that step up and take on that, that self-policing will be good for us.
No, I imagine it's more of like, I apologize. I imagine it's more of like a snowball effect rather than a light switch where it's going to accumulate. Is it heading in the right direction in your opinion? If so, as rapidly as you would like?
Yeah. I mean, it's never as rapid as you'd like, right? Like I want everything to take yesterday, but our guys have done a great job in all aspects. They're going to class. We got the third best GPA we've ever had in program history in the fall. The best GPA we've ever had as a program in the spring. We had, very few behavioral issues. I'm knock on wood. I'm super, thankful our kids are, doing the right things. I say that and you watch next week, some idiot will do something, but they're doing a good job because they're doing a good job. So you say snowball, I usually say like a domino, right? There's a lot of inertia there. So, but yeah, they're doing a good job. They can always be better, right? But wrestlers are never choir boys. You have to have a certain edge to be good at what we do, and that's just always going to be inherent in our sport. But they need to understand the responsibilities of being a Division I athlete and being at an institution like Maryland and what that means. And they got to be better. They got to be different. And being part of this program is that.
Awesome. No, and now what do you because I know a lot of our listeners are local here in Maryland. What can somebody we'll talk a non-COVID in-season day. What would that normally look like for a Maryland wrestler?
We're gonna get after it, that's for sure. So 7 a.m. we're gonna have wrestling practice most days. If we're not wrestling, we're probably drilling and conditioning. So like Monday morning we'll come in and we'll probably do some kind of skill work, and then either some sparring or some situational live. And then we'll come back at 2:00 and we'll lift and probably do our conditioning then. And then on Tuesdays, we usually either have an individual in the morning or it's our big live day, depending on how our lift was the afternoon before. And then Tuesday afternoon, we'll probably be, since it was all skill in the morning, probably come in and just crack the knuckles and get after it in the afternoon. And then Wednesday morning off, and then Wednesday afternoon lift, and then the cycle kind of repeats on Thursday and Friday. And then Saturday morning, again, talking about being strategic, when we have Saturday morning practices, we go 8 a.m. And that way the staff and the kids, we get out of there by 9:30 or so, and everyone has their whole weekend. But you still got your work in on Saturday morning. And it's almost like they had 4 to 8 hours off by the time you come back Monday. Once we get into season, though, we go Tuesdays are off days. Something I changed. I thought we wrestle in the Big Ten on Fridays and Sundays. Well, if you have practice on Monday, right? If you make Monday your off day and you have practice on Tuesday, by the time Sunday comes around, that second match, you're tired, you're worn out. And so we did and the other thought was you couldn't get 2 lifts in then. So if you lift on, Tuesday, it's really hard to lift on Thursday when you wrestle Friday. So we come in on Monday mornings and we do skill instruction, go over things we saw over the weekend. And then Monday afternoon we lift, and then we have Tuesday off. Tuesday's our off day, which is great because it gives the kids an off day during the week with the school and the workload and everything. So you kind of get caught up academically and see a professor or go to tutors or whatever. And then we'll get back to it on Wednesday and, go twice with the lift and the resting in the morning. And then Thursday be like a pre-match. They'll be all on their own in the mornings to do what they need to for their weight. And then Thursday afternoon will be a pre-match. When I say pre-match, it's not a weight cut practice. We're getting better at wrestling. We're working on, certain skills and different areas, but it's short, it's crisp, helping them get their weight off at the end, cut weight at the end. It's always shorts and a t-shirt when we have at practice. You're going to get better at wrestling first. You're going to cut your weight second. And then Friday, we'll have, something in the morning for the guys, loose structure. kind of what they need to work on within some areas or within some aspects of their game. And then we'll compete Friday night and then get up Saturday morning, you know, look at some things that they did wrong or some things they need to do for Sunday, and then come back in Sunday morning and get the weight off and wrestle again Sunday, and then repeat on Monday, and then off day on Tuesday, and so forth. So it becomes a little bit of Groundhog Day, the season, which I like. Like, I like to know, like, every Monday it's this, every Tuesday's this, every Wednesday's this. I'm just a creature of habit. I like the structure. I know not everybody's that way, but I think that it helps the kids know, like, they can kind of gauge their life, and they know, like, hey, I'm going to be exhausted on Monday, so I can kind of maybe not do that paper or that study for that math exam. On Tuesday, I can crush my studies because I'm off. So they can kind of get a rhythm and a flow too with their life, whether it's seeing mom and dad or hanging out with a girlfriend or, you know, having Fortnite time or, you know, whatever it is. They can kind of. I want these kids to be humans too. I want them to have lives. I want them to have a college experience. It's just that experience is going to look different than other kids, and that's fine, right? Every person at Maryland can go to Bentley's, and every kid in Maryland can go to Frat Row, right? But not every kid can wrestle in the Big Ten, and not every kid can fly across the country. Not every kid can, you know, get thousands of dollars of free Under Armour swag. So, you know, it's another pillar of the program. We talk about sacrifice. Well, I don't like to think of the word sacrifice in terms of what you give up. We always talk in terms of like what you get and get back. So we call it making the trade. Yeah, you trade certain things, but then for that trade, you got something else. And I think what our kids have the opportunity to do is way better than what they give up. You have the rest of your life to, you know, go drink beer at a bar.
Sure.
You know? So I can do that any day. I can't go back and wrestle an NCAA championship or a Big Ten, you know, match. I don't get to do that anymore. So there'll be plenty of time for the other. Let's focus on what we get to do now that we won't get to later.
Love the sound of it. And can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking your time with us. You know, just joining us today. Jason, do you want to hit the mailbag? Do we have any questions written in?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I'm going to give ourselves some props because I feel like we hit almost all of these mailbag questions, but there are a few. One I thought was interesting. Can anybody in the Terps room beat you?
Yeah, Devin. No, it depends. Do I get a start on top?
You're the coach. You start wherever you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Then nobody can beat me because you're never getting away from me. Does Jaron get to wrestle me for 3 minutes, or does he have to wrestle me for 30 minutes? Right. If he gets to wrestle me for 3 minutes, I'm going to get blasted a couple times. But if I get on top of him once, he's getting tortured. So it just depends. My skills are diminishing. I'm 37. I think my like drive to wrestle every day definitely is not there. So I think, unfortunately for me, right, I'm the coach. I get to set like the parameters. So I wrestle when I'm fresh and I really want to rip somebody's head off. So no, nobody's beat me yet. But I know, even like with me being able to game the system and Father Time, you know, kicking my ass, eventually that's going to cease. So it's a matter of time.
That makes sense. Kevin Estrada writes in, what's your take on private versus public school wrestlers? Is it make a huge difference in your recruiting? No,
it really doesn't. I think with all the national tournaments kids have access to now, off-season events, no, I don't care where you go to school. I don't care if you're purple, polka dotted, black, white. What kind of person are you and how tough are you and can you make the grades? Those are the things we're looking at.
Yeah, that seems to be the theme from college coaches we've talked about is, you know, you're going to Fargo and these national tournaments to show you can, you know, you can kind of and you can do that in the off season. You don't necessarily need to do that in the So Todd Martinick is asking, how long do you think it'll realistically take to go 500 in the Big Ten? That would be awesome, by the way, because that Big Ten is tough.
I've only won one match. I've only won one Big Ten match. The crazy thing is Maryland has won the second most national championships and Big Ten championships as a department since joining the league, right? Overall. So when you think about like all the other sports, wrestling's kind of lagged behind, and for whatever reason. Even volleyball has, women's volleyball is a very similar dynamic in women's volleyball as it is in men's wrestling for Big Ten. And our women's volleyball team has made the transition faster than we have. I don't know. That's a really good question. I mean, I'd hope to think it's a year or two, but the league is so good, and you cycle through opponents, right? It's not like we wrestle everybody. So
yeah,
one year I might wrestle Iowa, Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan, Nebraska, Minnesota, right? And the next year I might wrestle Indiana, Purdue, Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan, Michigan State, right? It's always different. So the schedule will probably make a difference. I'd have to probably look at, where we're at, but even, Indiana made a coaching change. They're ahead of us a year or two with Angel, and Rutgers is finally starting to click. Goodale's been there 10 years. Michigan State's ahead of us a couple of years with their coaching change. So I don't know. That's a great question.
Is there a
I hope it's soon. I hope it's really soon.
So do I. Is there a team that you want to beat any more than any other? This is my question.
I don't know. I like winning, right? Like I really like to win. It's probably a problem of mine. I mean, right? Like
I don't see that as a problem.
Well, when you think about like it can control your life, or it can, bring out, sometimes you get wrapped up in, or, like your emotions or whatever. So I don't know. I always like beating my friends. Like when I was at Missouri and we beat like Virginia Tech, right? Like I like beating Tony Roby because he's an Edinburgh alum. Like that's fun. Yeah. I liked beating Ohio State when Lou Roselli was there because, he was my coach. Like that's fun. So I don't, isn't that weird? Like I want to beat my friends. Like
no, not at all.
Totally.
Okay. Right. Like the brother thing, right? Like who's got bragging rights at Thanksgiving dinner?
Absolutely.
So I don't know. I don't know if there's a program out there that I'd like to be in. I mean, I think you always want to beat the best. So,
right.
Penn State, Iowa, Ohio State, you want to beat those programs. I want to beat everybody though. So
yeah,
I don't know if there's one in particular that I've got like circled on my board.
Right. That you're gunning for.
Yeah.
The last one from OM Scorps, who always is chiming in. I think people know who that actually is. But he says, has the program considered focusing recruiting efforts internationally? It's more common in basketball these days, but I know like American, for when Marcotti was there, he got a good amount of international recruits.
Yeah, and if you look at Maryland too, like I think it's their lacrosse and field hockey programs. I think they bring in a lot of international, or they did for a certain period of time.
Lacrosse
Did you ever think
and
about
soccer.
it with wrestling?
It's lacrosse and soccer, and tennis. We haven't a ton.
It's tough because it's free. It's free. They're all like wrestling freestyle and stuff.
Yeah, but there's some good. Right? Like Z did a phenomenal job at Oklahoma State, and the kid at Clarion, and the guys at American. I don't want to like crush anybody's name, so I never say them right, but
Mustafar was the one.
Mustafar, yeah. I mean, Mustafar, the one time, like my two-time All-American teammate Deontay, like one time Mustafar at Nationals, like put Deontay's like foot behind his head, had him like a pretzel. And Deontay was like the toughest son of a gun. He was a 65-pounder. I was an 84. We used to have wars, like just crazy wars in the practice room. He's just such a tough dude. And I saw Mustafar do that to him, and I was like, that guy must be like just ungodly strong, But no, we haven't. The TOEFL score at Maryland's like really high. I think the wrestling world internationally tends to be, like a super blue collar, world. So finding kids that can pass that TOEFL is really difficult. So that's been one barrier. And then just in terms of like, investing recruiting dollars in overseas flights and things, hard to see the ROI on that, but I wouldn't be opposed to, if somebody knows some, crazy Dagestani that wants to get a degree at Maryland.
Well, it all costs the same now in the COVID era with recruiting, right?
Yeah.
It's all just a Zoom call.
Yeah, it's all Zoom, right? So so let me know. Again, like I said, I don't care if you're purple polka dotted. I don't care where you're from, California or Turkmenistan. It's like if you can wrestle and you can do the schoolwork and keep your nose clean, then I'd love to coach you. So if people out there have connections to those things, yeah, I'll look at whoever.
Gotcha. Anything else on the docket there?
I think that's it. Like I said, I mean, half of them we already touched on. It was like a lot of the same questions that we've already covered. So
cool.
No, that's awesome. So no, and that one more question I wanted to ask before we, and again, can't tell how much we appreciate you taking your time for us. As far as like administrative support, and I certainly don't want to get you in trouble or anything like that. So feel free to pass on these. Do you see any differences between the support that you're receiving now at Maryland compared to Missouri or other programs you've been a part of?
No, I've been really fortunate. I think everywhere I've been, I mean, even when I was at Oregon State, we built that brand new room. I mean, Oregon State's got Chris inherited one of the premier facilities in the country, definitely the premier facility on the West Coast, which is really cool. I think that's a program that should be, super viable. And I think Chris is going to do a great job out there. His staff's awesome. Nate and those guys are great. So, Mr. Alden, when I first got to Missouri, he loved wrestling. And then there was so much transition at Missouri with Mac and then Mr. Sturk. So didn't really get to know Mac. He was kind of in and out, and Mr. Sturk is a basketball guy, but he's, continuing to support Brian at a really high level. So I don't know. Mr. Littlepage at UVA wanted to win at everything. And I know their new AD, I think it's Carla Williams is her name. They're building, state-of-the-art facilities down there. And I know wrestling's getting a facility. I don't mean to recruit for Steve, but so I don't know. Damon's, Mr. Evans is all in on every sport. I mean, he wants to win at everything. He came from Georgia where they, compete for SEC championships and national titles almost across the board. So that's kind of what he's used to. And I think he wants to, get Maryland athletics to that level. So I feel good about the sport I've got. We've redone the room. I can't, check out social media. We're kind of releasing pictures on it. The room's closed. Even as we're getting back, we're not letting outsiders in.
I saw those pics. It looks
I checked them out myself.
Yeah, it's awesome. And we built a lounge, it's right behind me. And we're actually only going to utilize this space for a couple years because the Maryland Basketball Performance Center is going to be built. And then we're going to inherit the current basketball lounge and locker room space. So if you can imagine, high-level Power 5 basketball resources and amenities. They're going to retrofit that space for us. It's going to be, out of this world. So I think we've got everything we need. I didn't come here to lose, right? I didn't come to not be able to be super competitive and win at a high level. It's going to take time, but I know that the administration is going to, give us everything they can, and they want us to be as successful as we can be. So, I've been fortunate. Every place I've been has been really, really good. At least while I was there. So, I felt like all the ADs that I've been a part of and that's not like Mike Alden's not in athletics anymore, right? He's retired. Mr. Littlepage is retired. I don't need to give those guys props. They're just, they like helping young people and supporting young people and winning championships. And they helped us do that. So, I've been fortunate everywhere I've been.
Are you concerned at all with, obviously we heard about Stanford and ODU. Are you concerned about this COVID situation and programs getting dropped? I mean, not necessarily at Maryland, but just for the sport in general and
yes,
wrestling.
Yes. And anybody that says otherwise is lying to you.
Right.
So, if we're going to be honest and I'm brutally honest, right? That's just who I am. Yeah, we should all be worried. I should be worried about my program if I'm doing my due diligence. Not that that's been discussed or talked about. In fact, it's been the opposite. I know we had some alums that reached out to Mr. Evans, and Damon called me and said, "Hey, why are alums calling me? Wrestling's not going anywhere in Maryland."
Right.
Tell them
it's better to be proactive than
and that's what I said. I said, they see other things. I think they're passionate about their program, and he got it. I mean, he totally got it. Heck, just the last call he got on when he talked about, he referenced Iowa dropping 4 sports. He's like, Maryland's not doing that. We are not dropping sports. So, but I think but even when he says that, I still, I have a fiduciary responsibility to this program, and every coach in the country should look at their program like that. And that's something that, Coach Zaleski talked about. It's something Tim Flynn talks about. It's something Brian Smith talks about. I think anybody that's a good steward of their resources and their program should, be raising money and recruiting the right kids and endearing themselves to the local community and university and positioning their program to be successful in all aspects. So yeah, I'm concerned about it. I'm concerned about it for all Olympic sports. I've got a little girl, right? I've seen, even women's sports are being dropped. That's what's crazy. It's not the Title IX thing anymore, right? Where they're just dropping men's sports. I mean, it's like fiscal nightmares.
Stanford dropped 11 programs?
Yeah. Iowa dropped 4, including a women's sport. So, I worry about opportunities just for young people. I think sports teaches young people so many things that you can't learn in a classroom, or that some kids unfortunately don't get from a home life scenario, that maybe because they whatever reason it is, right? I just think, and even kids that are from a perfect world, right? Sports just teaches you things that you don't get in other settings. So I think as a society we don't benefit when we limit opportunities for sports at any level. Youth, middle school, high school, or collegiate. I think sports are a big part of our fabric as a society, and the more opportunities we give kids and positive, outlets and positive role models, I think our society benefits from them for sure.
Absolutely. No, and when kids get distracted, they do stupid shit, and sports is something that stops them from being distracted. It gives them something to, very bluntly, but that's just teaches how I look at it.
It teaches you hard work. It teaches you coping mechanisms. It teaches you communication. It teaches you relationship. It teaches you how to compete with somebody but not undercut them, right? Because they're your teammate. So you get to a business world setting, and I think people that have a sports background can be more successful in those settings because of those backgrounds. People want to hire athletes, not because they're jock sniffers, but because they know they make their companies more productive.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you say your biggest lesson that you got from wrestling was? What was the biggest positive influence it had on you as a person?
Perseverance. It just, you got to keep getting up. You're going to get knocked down. Life doesn't stop, and it hits you, and it hits you hard, and it keeps hitting you. And you got to keep getting up. So if you're willing to get up, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to screw the pooch. You're going to drop the ball, whatever, acronym you want to give, you're gonna do it. But can you get up a 7th, 8th, 9th, 10,000th time? People that are willing to keep getting up, eventually they have success. Eventually they get over. Eventually they find their niche. Eventually they get into something good. So just keep getting up.
Absolutely. If one thing's getting up, it's going to be the Maryland wrestling program here in a couple of years.
For sure.
Coach Clemsen at the helm. Coach, before we let you go, is there anything else you want to cover? Anything else you want to talk about, sir?
No, I don't know. I think we covered a lot today. I think the only thing I'd say is just reiterate, to the Maryland community, come out and support us. It's going to take some time, and we're going to take some lumps along the way. But if we're all in this together, if we're, in the stands, if we're writing checks, if we're supporting the program, it's going to happen faster. I'm just so damn bullheaded. I'll win no matter what eventually, but we can do it together, and it'll take me a shorter time, or people can fight me and not like me, and it'll take me longer. So hopefully more people can at least stomach me, or can at least tolerate me, and can help us to get to where we want to go together. Because I love being a Marylander. I love being at the flagship institution in this great state, and feel really blessed to be here. So I want to be here a long time. I love to see my kids get a degree from this institution. That's no joke. So let's do some good things together.
Absolutely. And together we definitely will do it. Coach, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Really appreciate it. Done a hell of a job, reaching out to the Maryland community. This is just another example of it. And, we really appreciate it. We know bright days are ahead for the Terrapin wrestling program. Jason, you got anything else, buddy?
No, thanks a lot, Coach. I think anybody who watches this and is considering Maryland and staying home, I think, they're going to be, pushed over the edge. And looking forward to great things.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Welcome to come on anytime, and we get back to normal. You guys have to come check out a practice. We get the room back open. So,
yeah, no doubt.
Would love to. Absolutely going to take you up on that. And thank you again. So we appreciate everybody as well joining us for today. It's another great episode here with Coach Alex Clemsen, University of Maryland. Thank you, as always, for supporting Champions That Wrestle, and we'll see you next time.
See you later.